Hey y'all, Bladed Angel here, and I'm a bit sick, so my voice is kind of hoarse. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna make this video because I haven't uploaded in a while. In today's video, we'll be talking about— God, I feel so low energy right now. I'm so sorry. I sound low energy. I don't feel low energy. Anyways, we'll be talking about the phases that car enthusiasts progress. Car enthusiasts is what? Anyways, we progress through becoming a fully fledged enthusiast. Keep in mind, this isn't accurate for everyone, but more so a generalization of what majority of us went through, so let's get started. The first phase I call the discovery phase. Some way, somehow, you found yourself getting interested in cars. Maybe it was the movie you watched the other day, or the newest racing game you just bought. Whatever it is, you've started to realize that something about cars resonates within you and that you'd like to explore this blossoming passion as you enter this phase. This can be one of the most overwhelming phases as a car enthusiast because you aren't exactly sure which direction to head in. If you grew up in a family that already loves cars, then you probably won't feel that lost. This is more so addressed to all those people who are like, starting from scratch, fresh off the boat car enthusiasts. They came from those normie families, you gotta love cars all on your own. Anyways, there are a lot of directions to head, and that can be both overwhelming and exciting, but eventually you find a path to walk along. This then leads you into the second phase, and God forbid I hate this second phase, but it needs to happen. It's one of the most toxic phases during a car enthusiast's cycle, but its existence, despite being frustrating, it's a necessary evil, or it's a necessary step because it allows people to fully appreciate the world of cars. And people get really passionate during this phase, maybe a bit too passionate. As a fanboy, you found your reason to love cars, but unfortunately, you also think everyone else should love cars for the exact same reason you do. The most common example is the average teenager, the hype beasts, people who aren't fully fledged car enthusiasts, still kind of sub-normies, semi-normies. They can be found loving cars because all they care about is a high horsepower, no replacement for displacement. My father's brother's uncle's Goldfish's Corvette can beat your car any day, bro. That's all they ever freaking talk about is how fast cars are, numbers, data, speed, statistics, specs. That's all they care about. It's despite not actually owning the car that they're worshipping or that they're so intertwined or deeply in love with, they will literally go to war with anyone on the internet, from forums to YouTube comment sections, you name it. They're gonna tell everyone else their car is garbage. It's so funny because it happens to me all the time. People are like, "You're not a real car guy, Blade Angel. You just own a Mustang." And I'm like, "Yeah, what car do you own?" They're like, "Well, I don't own a car yet because I'm 12, so I don't have a license yet. But when I do, I'm gonna get a GTR at 16. And it's like, yeah, you go and do that. You go and do that. I'm not saying you can't get a GTR at 16, but you slowly start to realize that you shouldn't call other people's cars garbage because that's not what being a real car enthusiast is. And this is something that is really confusing to them because they don't really understand why people are a lot nicer than they realize. Because I feel like a lot of the fanboys, like I said, most of the toxicity that happens is between them, amongst them. They don't actually go to car shows and talk to people's faces because that's a lot harder than just being a stupid keyboard warrior. Once they actually do kind of slowly transition into the world of cars, they're actually going to car shows, they're actually talking with people about cars in the real world, in clubs and whatnot, they get really confused. They're like, whoa, why are people not talking about speed, statistics, and specs? They get really confused when they find those people who rebuild classic cars not to make it fast, rebuilding a classic Chevy Nova just for the hell of it. Even if it's not even reliable, they just rebuild it, and that blows fanboys' mind. They can't fathom or grasp why someone would do that. They're like, but it's not fast. They fucking seize up and have some. I'm cursing so much in this, by the way, but I'm having the time of my life right now because I've wanted to make this video for a while. And they just get so baffled because they would see someone smile, someone with a Honda S2000, and why the hell is that guy so happy? It's just an S2000. And that's the problem with fanboys, or this phase in general. They're always like, it's just this, it's just that, it's just a Miata, it's just this. And they say all this while they're sitting in the back seat of their mom's Honda Odyssey. Again, like I said, they're kids who don't even have a license yet. Because they take so much for granted, because as a fanboy, you can hate anything and not be aligned to anything, in the sense that you are not the owner of the vehicle that you love so much, so you don't realize how hard it is to actually love that vehicle or to actually be a car enthusiast, so you can just sit on the sidelines and be a dick to everyone and everything. And that's what sucks, because that kind of brings me to the next phase. A vast majority of them will enter this phase actually, and this phase is so crushing that it will single-handedly end their desire to become a car enthusiast. Like, so many fanboys, I will admit it right now, a lot of fanboys don't actually become car enthusiasts. A lot of them, well, they enter this phase called fleeting interest. All of a sudden, they turn 16, and their parents didn't buy them that Nissan GTR they wanted. And they're thinking to themselves, you know, why not? It's their right to have that GTR. All of their dreams, all of their love, all of their passion, they deserve the GTR. So why then? Why can't it be in their hands? And all of a sudden they realize that that guy on the internet with a Mustang GT busted his ass to get it. That college kid with the S2000, it's not just an S2000 to him. He worked his ass off to pay for it, and that's why he's smiling so much about it. The oh so great GTR that they wanted to crush all the competition with its blistering performance numbers, data, and specs wasn't something that would just fall out of the sky and become theirs. And to all the fanboys watching this video who transition into this fleeting interest phase, the majority of you will probably, I hope you guys actually get out of it, but the majority of people, like I said, do actually end up leaving being a car, not becoming a car enthusiast. And that's because they come to the conclusion that, you know, the world is cruel and that every supercar owner is a douchebag. That people who actually love cars aren't the ones who end up getting cool cars. That stupid non-car celebrities and status symbol flexers are the ones who end up owning, is flexer is a word? Who cares? Anyways, they're the ones who end up owning their dream car, not actual car people. That's kind of what upsets me, you know. If you're a fanboy who's like kind of in this fleeting interest phase, ask yourself this. How are you any better than those non-car celebrities or status symbol wannabes? What makes you any more deserving of your dream car compared to them? I always hear the same excuse, you know, they say stuff like, but I love my dream car, I'll appreciate it more than I do, I deserve it. Why do I become Patrick whenever I talk about what my comment section says? Oh my god, anyways, yeah, that's such a terrible argument. You know, I understand where they're coming from. I was stuck in this phase for a long time. You know, I too was in a fleeting interest phase. And you feel so helpless because you want to love cars, but you don't have the money because you're a kid. And even when you come to the conclusion to graduating college and getting, like, you know, a six-figure salary, you still can't quite fathom the ability to own your dream car, theoretically. And that makes a lot of people just entirely give up on loving cars. Because no matter how hard, like, I'm going to speak from my perspective, back when I was in this phase, the way I felt in this phase was no matter how hard I dreamed, no matter how much I loved cars, no matter how much I felt like I deserved, my dream car was, don't hate me for this, a Lamborghini Aventador. Yeah, I was a basic ass mofo back then, but no matter how much I felt like I deserved an Aventador, instead of those non-car celebrities, I never even came remotely close to getting it, and no matter how much I ran the numbers, I couldn't fathom or figure out a way to get to it, and I gave up, you know, so I gave up and declared the world was unfair, and high school me simply resigned himself to owning a Nissan Sentra. Obviously, I own a Mustang now, but, you know, that doesn't come till later. And you know, what a joke. Looking back at it now, I realize how much of a bitch baby I was. Like, and how much of a bitch baby most of these fanboys are also. You know, I deserve an Aventador because I love it. You know, I kind of thought that to myself. And then I kind of asked myself, if I really loved it, then I would bust my ass to get it. Night and day, time and time again. I'd work so ridiculously hard for it. And every ounce of that labor, all those blood, sweat, and tears would go towards getting closer to that dream. And even when I've come so far, I realize that I have so much farther to go, because that's what love means. That love will drive me to insane lengths and force me to push my limits. So to the fanboys watching this video, if you think you love your dream car so much that you deserve it, prove it. It's not enough to say that you love something. Turn those words into actions. So don't you dare talk about anyone in their car. You have no idea how hard some of us have to even get a fraction of our original goal, and you can bet each and every one of us are still going day by day. So I'll say it again, don't you dare talk about our cars, especially when your sorry ass hasn't even put in half the work we have. So get up and stop whining about how you can't get your dream car, because you can get your dream car. Because every second you spend whining and dreaming could instead be spent working and pursuing your goal. So many people quit loving cars in this phase and never come back, but if you have the conviction, I ask that you keep pushing. I escaped this phase the moment I realized that this world didn't owe me that I didn't deserve anything from it. But that's okay, because what I can't get handed to me, I'll earn myself. I know it's frustrating to see some sort of, like, you know, people who grow up in rich families, you know, get a freaking Lambo or whatever supercar right at 16. You know, that seems unfair and, you know that they don't love the car. But even though you think you deserve the car more than they do, you have to prove it. You know, you have to actually work towards getting that car someday. You can't just go up to their face and be like, I should be the one driving it, because at that moment you're more of a non-car person than they are. It doesn't matter how many specs or statistics or how well you can name, you know, that car or all of its everything that you know about it. That's not what entitles you to owning a vehicle. You work for what you want to own. And once you do own it, you feel so proud when you realize that you deserved it, like you actually deserved it because you actually worked for it. That's a completely different feeling. With that realization, that brings you to another phase called the revival of interest, or revival, whatever. And I found myself, so back to my perspective, I found myself pulling through the fleeting phase and, you know, finding my interest in cars coming back to me. Except this time it was different. So in this phase, you don't blindly worship one car over the rest, and you no longer feel the need to insult others based on what car they own. You know, as aforementioned in what I talked about in the fleeting interest phase, you realize how hard it is and how far a lot of us have pushed ourselves to get the cars that we love. And it allows you to become more open-minded, and you realize that there's so much more to cars, you know, than what you initially thought, which is so cool. You know, from the thrill of racing to the art of drifting to the nostalgia of times past, or just this plain satisfaction of working. It becomes so exciting to see why everyone has their reason to love cars. It's not just about numbers, data, specs, stats, you know. Everyone just initially, fanboys always argue speed. That's not what it's about. And it's so cool to see why people love cars for what they do, and it makes all of us so proud to be part of the car community. You know, we no longer become some dumb fanboy screaming from the outside in. You know, this time you're an actual car enthusiast. It's funny because during this phase, you attend car shows, you join forums, you share car memes, and you play video games just like you did in the discovery phase. It's kind of funny how most of us, when we first start out as car enthusiasts in the discovery phase, we open up ourselves to so many pathways to loving cars. Yet for some reason, the vast majority of us narrow it back down to one path and become so blindly devoted to that one path, we shun others who walked on the other paths. However, to those of us who've made it this far, we find ourselves converging back together, and in a weird twist of fate, that blind devotion that we had during our fanboy phase is actually what makes us more unique, because when we converge back together, like let's say someone was a super big fanboy, like I said, the stereotypical specs, you know, speed, they just care about all that garbage. And, not garbage, I love that stuff too, but someone else became a car enthusiast because, you know, they were really into classic cars. And that's so cool, because when people converge back together, you get to share your perspective and, you know, what path you walked along, and then it like all merges back together, because chances are that guy who's really into speed and fast cars, he's gonna know more about that type of stuff compared to the classic car guy, but the classic car guy is gonna know more about classic cars than that guy does. But when you share it, you have a greater appreciation of car community as a whole, but you still have your little niche that you're part of. But it's so cool that you respect and learn about all these niches. You know, with that information, eventually you gain the confidence and you work hard enough and you enter the final phase, which some of us don't buy our dream cars right away, but that phase is the owner phase. And it doesn't matter what car you own, let's be real. It doesn't matter. Any car that you own along the way to get your dream car, great car. Because the thing is, you may find your dream car changing. Like I said, I laugh at my past self for liking a Lamborghini Aventador. Like, you know, a lot of people I know, like I said, a lot of people like the Nissan GTR. They may end up realizing, you know what, a Nissan Fairlady, that's a pretty cool car. Or they may even jump ship entirely and be like, you know what, RX-7, those are life. Love rotaries. And you'll find yourself flipping. And you'll also find yourself like I said, every teenager loves supercars. So many fanboys orgasm over supercars. Once you become a more dedicated car enthusiast, you know, you get real taste. You know, you become a real. And I'm not saying supercars are bad. I love supercars to this day, and to this day, I still want to own one or something with similar performance. But God, do I respect the hell out of so many other types of cars. Like, I respect a well-built rotary like an RX-7 just as much as I do a supercar. Like, you put that next to a Huracan, I'm just gonna I'll respect it just as much, legit. Unless it's LS swap. That's a joke. I'm fine with LS swapped RX-7s. As long if you have a good reason for it. Please don't LS swap an RX-7 for the shits and gigs. If it has a good running rotary still, for the love of God, keep the rotary. Rotaries are a dying breed already. Don't make it worse. And you know what? The thing is, so obviously today I find myself with the keys to a 2016 Mustang GT. And sure, it's not an Aventador, but I'm so glad it wasn't, because I'm not ashamed to admit that I've spun my car out while autocrossing. And that's just simply due to the fact that, you know, I wasn't prepared to deal with a car that has 435 horsepower that's also rear-wheel drive. Because the only car that I drove before that, you know, my old daily driver was a 2013 Nissan Sentra, you know, a bitch baby front-wheel drive 130 horsepower car. But once again, back to the fanboy phase. Fanboy me thought it'd been so baller to be a teenager driving a Lamborghini Aventador. But God, am I so glad I didn't, because once you actually own your first real car, like your car enthusiast car, not like your little grocery getter car. Like I said, I respect all cars. I loved my Sentra for what it did, but at the end of the day, it didn't allow me to become a true car enthusiast, because the Mustang has a great community behind it, so much aftermarket support. Perfect stepping stone, and that's what I see my Mustang as. It's a stepping stone. And that brings me back to this example, is I'm so glad that I realized how difficult it actually is. It's not difficult anymore because I've gotten used to it, but I'm so glad I can say that. I got used to driving a car with this much horsepower and being rear-wheel drive. I have so much confidence that I daily drive my car in the snow in Indiana. It's snowed so much, and I still drive my car. Don't worry, I wash it a lot too, for all the people who are like, oh, what about all the salt? Don't worry, I do that. I'm just so grateful, because imagine if I skipped to an Aventador. I just skipped right from a Sentra to the Aventador. Let's say I grew up in some spoiled-ass family. I would have crashed that day one. Or, you know, first week or something. There's no way I would have been competent enough to handle like 700 horsepower. Even if it's all-wheel drive. Like, if I smacked that crap in Corsa, I would have crashed it. But I'm so glad that I've taken the stepping stone. Like I said, back to the beginning, like so many fanboys, 12-year-old keyboard warriors, they make fun of me for owning a Mustang GT, but they forget that I'm a freaking college student. I'm 21. Like, I'm on my way to owning a supercar. I'm gonna get that cool car someday, but I absolutely recommend it. If you did not grow up in a car enthusiast family and you've never regularly, consistently driven like been around 300 horsepower cars, for the love of God, don't buy supercar as your first car. I mean, but like I said, for the few percentage that is thinking about it, because you don't have to be 16 to buy a car, because I know some people in college who are, by the way, I'm not using a script for this video if you couldn't tell, I'm just talking off the top of my head. I like it more though. I'm sick, like I said, who cares? That has nothing to do with it anyways. Some people I know, they purposely don't buy their first car till around 22, so actually, good example. One of my friends, his first car was an Audi R8, not even kidding you. It was a 2008 Audi R8, a 6-speed manual. He completely destroyed the clutch in that car because he never owned a car his entire life. 16-year-old, didn't get a license. He got his license around 18 years old, but he kind of just, you know, drove with his parents' car or with his friends' cars, and all his friends and parents, or just hitched rides with his friends, I should say. And his parents owned, like, you know, your typical Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, nothing fast. Right, he got a great internship, got a great job out of college, wanted to flex. You know he wanted to flex. He's not an actual car guy. And that's the problem, he's not an actual car guy. So he went out, bought an Audi R8, completely just blew its clutch. He ended up selling it after only 3 months of owning it, and he doesn't even want to be a car guy anymore. Like, he's just like, rather, I wouldn't even call him car guy in the first place, but he was so turned off by his sour experience of owning that car. And it saddens me because it was his fault. Like, he didn't take the proper steps. Like I said, to all the people talking about people owning S2000s or Mustangs or, you know, Camaros or whatever, because like I know fanboys love to hate on anything that's not a supercar. Understand that if you've never driven like one of those cars, like a regular sports car, your ass is probably going to ruin that supercar that you love so much. Once again, this is applying to people who didn't grow up in car enthusiast families, because if you grew up in a car enthusiast family, one of your freaking uncles or grandpas probably owns like an 1,000 horsepower drag build, so you probably know how to handle a supercar even when you're like 16. But for the average non-car, like for the car enthusiast who grew up in a normie family, get a sports car first. You will not regret it, because there's just so much to learn and it's so fun. And like I said, once you go through that phase, like you become an owner of one of these cars, you fall in love so hard. I bought the Mustang GT purely as a transition car, but I don't even know if I ever want to sell it. Like, if I ever buy another car, I'm not selling my Mustang GT. I'm just gonna keep it. I'm not using it as a trade-in. And I say that now, I don't know how the future's gonna play, but that's what I like. Because I fell so hard for it, you know, I love it now. I love the community behind it. Like, shout out to anyone who owns a Mustang watching this video, because the forum owners, even just driving around, you know, GT owners wave at each other. At least in Indiana they do. You know, I only see like one GT owner once a week. It's Indiana, but God, I love the community, and it's more than a community. It's just, there's so much to love. Like I said, once you just own a car, love it to death. Like, even if it's something lame, like even if you don't get a cooler RX-7, like you get a FB or FC RX-7, such a cool car. Or Mark III Supra, because I know one of my subscribers, she loves the death out of Mark III Supras. Shout out to you. But Mark III Supras, like, that's such a beauty. And these are cars you get for like $2 to $4 grand, and like a high schooler would look at these cars and think they're complete junk boxes. But that's why car enthusiasts are so awesome, because car enthusiasts are going to look at that car and they're going to be like, that's the coolest crap I've ever seen. And once you're the owner of one of these cars, you're going to understand why car enthusiasts think that, because you're going to fall so hard for that car. And that's why the owner phase, in my opinion, is such a beautiful phase, because you realize that you don't need a supercar to be happy. And even if you do want one, work hard for one. So all I have to say is keep pressing in whatever direction that you feel is right for you, and I hope all you guys keep doing what you gotta do to get to where you want to go. As always, thanks for watching, and see y'all next time. Bladed Angel out.
Hey guys, look, it's a Miata. So for all the people who are about to comment, where's the Miata? There's the freaking Miata, okay? There it is.